All right, let's come back and take a look at the local dailies. Yes, ideally today, the big headline should be on the resumption of the continuous voter registration. And that is the story on the front page of the People Daily, and that's why I chose to start with this. They talk about uncast power. Will voter apathy kill Kenyans' dream in 2027? We did a quick poll here in studio because our crew is basically made up of younger Kenyans, mostly Gen Zs and maybe millennials a bit. And yes, there's a lot of apathy. Kuna moja alituambia yeye hata ana candidate, kwa hivyo hata register kupiga kura. Now, that's the problem we're talking about, is that level of voter apathy that will kill Kenyans' dream in 2027. Yeah, 6.3 million potential new voters. Yeah. But if at all they feel like they don't have a candidate, sasa ile kelele walikuwa wanapiga last year wataenda kupigia wapi? Kama uwezi piga kura, usipige kelele. Bado wanapiga kelele. Usipige kelele na uwezi piga kura. Enda register and tutaongea hiyo maneno. Because the problem is there was a lot of reawakening, a lot of ile inaitwaje, mwamko mpya. Watu wanaelewa siasa zaidi nini, lakini kama uwezi piga kura, hiyo yote itaambulia patupu. Right. So that's the main story there. And it's a question they're asking. Yeah. Ndio, younger Kenyans have the power. They form 70% of the voting power. But if at all they are apathetic to this process, bure kabisa. Balancing books and babies, the untold story of Kenya's student parents. Na pale juu, how impunity fuels violence against journalists. It's also a very important story on page 2 of this paper. People Daily.
All right, Daily Nation, very busy newspaper this morning. New battle on Ruto policies, tough wars. Executive has often attacked judiciary over court orders. And top of the list, housing levy. Petitioners want the levy declared unlawful, citing discrimination in reserving houses for select civil servants. Corruption task force and a court has suspended formation of a presidential multi-agency team on the war against corruption. Victims' compensation. Judges have halted the operations of a team formed to decide on compensation for protest victims. And finally, pending cases are challenging laws on mandatory social health insurance fund contributions by workers. And they say a fresh petition seeking to outlaw the mandatory housing levy, accusing President Ruto of turning the project into a political tool to woo voters, adds to the growing list of state policies challenged in court. This story has been covered extensively on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Tukiangalia ndani, President has previously accused the judiciary, of course, of standing in the way of his administration's implementation of key programs. Other stories on the front page of the Daily Nation. Horror crash kills 13 on Nakuru-Nairobi highway. Scene of a road accident at Kariandusi along the Nakuru-Nairobi highway, where 13 passengers in a 14-seater matatu died after a head-on collision with a trailer yesterday. Right here, that photo on the front page of the Daily Nation. I could not watch that video. Sasa nilikuwa nimeweka nasikia tu reporter kwa background.
Very sad indeed.
Hata viatu zimesambaratika on the road.
Metapaka.
Inaitwa kutapaka.
Kutapaka.
Not kusambaratika. What's kusambaratika?
Kudisintegrate.
Hiyo kitu si mdomo yangu. Farmers' fury as tea bonus shrinks across regions. Farmers have raised concerns over reduced earnings and wide disparities in payment across the 77 factories managed by the Kenya Tea Development Agency. And Coast eyes more visitors with cultural religious attractions. It's another story given prominence on the front page of this newspaper. On the back page, all right.
On page 9, that's where they talk about the voter registration exercise. And they say this exercise will actually cost the IEBC and you, the taxpayer, about 7 billion shillings. Alafu bado unakosa kwenda kuregister. The Electoral Commission is racing against time to register 6.3 million new voters ahead of the 2027 general election. However, MPs have expressed doubts about the ambitious plan.
Jumuenda vote.
Aenda register. Candidate atakuja baadaye.
Oh my goodness. On the back page, by the skin of their teeth, CAF Champions League and Kenyan champs will next face either Jamus of South Sudan or Sudan's Al Hilal Omdurman. That's the Daily Nation this morning.
All right. From the Daily Nation, we go to the Standard, which steers clear of politics as well. Talks about bandits in uniform, an inside job, despite having more police units and heightened security than any other region. The North Rift remains ravaged by bandit attacks that drain life and condemn residents to endless suffering. Now, the arrest of in Nairobi of officers from the police and prisons departments has exposed a criminal syndicate, confirming the grim truth. Those entrusted to protect Kenyans are the very ones abetting cattle rustling for illicit profit. So it's the involvement of officers within different security agencies in the illicit cattle rustling trade. Some of them, their faces plastered there. Weapons, so zile hata weapons zinatumika kule, most of them kumbe ni za askari. Yeah. Na CS wa Interior amekuwa akienda zile safari zake, alikuwa amesema he will end cattle rustling by a certain time. Sasa ni polisi wake wale tu wake ndio wanafanya hiyo kazi. All right, the Standard today looks very different because pale juu anaongea kuhusu silent suicide epidemic. At least 462 people died by suicide between June and August this year, an average of 5 lives lost every day. The deaths cutting across counties and age groups reveal a deepening national crisis. You can read more on that, pages 8 and 9 of this paper. Na hawana siasa leo. Hawana siasa kabisa.
I'm trying to
hata wataki. Kule ndani ndo amezungumzia Kenya Kwanza, Uhuru clash as mothers held in words of unpaid bills. That's also a story about health, not politics. What is happening to the Standard?
Nothing about voter registration.
Nothing about Standard bwana. Kwani kumeenda aje?
Nothing at all.
This is very interesting. The Standard ni kama, no, the cartoon at least, and we'll come to that. We'll come to that.
All
right, that's the Standard.
Taifa leo, hali si shwari kwa mawaziri wa Raila. Hofu miongoni mwa wataalamu wa Raila serikalini waliojipata katika taharuki kutokana na ukosefu wa msimamo wa ODM ni mawaziri Joho, Mbadi, Oparanya Wandayi na Asku, pamoja na mwanasheria mkuu Dorcas Oduor na maafisa katika mashirika ya serikali. Anasema kwamba wataalamu wa ODM serikalini hawajui hatima yao baada ya Raila kusema huenda wasimuunge Ruto mwaka 2027. Really, hali si shwari kwa mawaziri kwa Raila, so
unajua sasa anasema asipounga Ruto mkono mwaka 2027 kazi imeisha automatically. Joho alisema hapa tutoki, mimi stoki hapa stoki.
Kama wanafanya kazi mzuri, maybe the next government will also have them in their
I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it.
You're doubting that?
Unless they get to form the government themselves.
All right.
Yes.
With ODM?
ODM or Joho himself.
Vidokezo zaidi katika ukurasa wa mbele ya Taifa Leo. Vilio bonasi ya majani chai kishuka. Natembea mrai Raila amruke Ruto, anasema ajitenga na vuguvugu la Kenya moja, huku akihimiza Raila ungane na upinzani. Wazito wa EPL walilia chooni.
Rudia.
Wazito wa EPL walilia chooni. Liverpool, Manchester United na Chelsea wagongwa ligini, Spurs ikitoka.
Mbona hata anawaita wazito? Hawa ni wanyonge wanyongeni. Wazito ni kama Arsenal.
Na ni kama anytime Arsenal wins, director Emmanuel Inonde is not always in. On the top strip, kesi mpya ya kupinga ushuru wa nyumba, na wanaharakati wanasema ushuru huo hauna usawa, pia si halali. Na finally, namna IEBC inavyopanga kusajili watu milioni 6.3. Tumeyaelezea njia za kuhakikisha imesajili wapiga kura wengi kuanzia hii leo. Taifa Leo.
Gazeti la Taifa Leo. Kutoka Taifa Leo tunaenda kwenye Star. They talk about something different as well. Also steers clear of political stories there on the front page. High economic strain forces job cuts and farm closures. They talk about some 116 farms that have shut down in 4 years. And this has resulted in the loss of about 100,000 jobs. History iko pale kwenye ukurasa wa 4 and 5. Talking about a number of people who've gone for months without salaries as well. And some of the companies that have sent home employees in the past months include Brown's Plantations, which sent away 2,000 workers. G4S Kenya, Tropical Brand, Wire Product, Copier, And most affected sectors are agriculture, banking, manufacturing, technology, health and media. Na unaambiwa agriculture is the backbone of this economy. Na hiyo ndio inatuma watu nyumbani. Backbone. Number of people who are likely to lose jobs as AGOA ends this week, 66,000. So more pain coming our way. Wow. This is a sad story there on the front page of the Star. Other quick highlights. How Tuk Ride pushed CEO to buy Mayfair Bank is a story there about Hisham Ez Al Arab, CEO Commercial International Bank. Hope for HIV funding as Kenya enters deal with the US is another story there on the Star. Right. We move on swiftly.
Finally, Business Daily, Treasury expands borrowing options amid rising debt pain. And as Kenyan debt service costs and budget deficit grow, the Treasury has been forced to become more creative in the choice of instrument it deploys to raise new debt and keep existing creditors happy. In prior years, the government relied on narrow staple of Treasury bills and bonds, concessional loans.
Concessional loans.
Concessional loans, okay, from multilateral and bilateral lenders, Eurobonds and syndicated loans to raise new debt.
At this rate, hii Taifa kuitwa Treasury, siitwe tu Debt Ministry. Ministry of Debt. Alafu CS Mbadi aitwe CS in charge of debt.
Projected spending on debt repayments. Hata mimi nimeshtuka venye director ameshtuka. Projected spending on debt repayments this fiscal year is 1.9 trillion shillings.
Yes. That's almost 50%. Almost 50% of our national budget.
And the budget for the 2025-2026 financial year is 4.3 trillion.
So if what you're doing more is paying debt, servicing debt, so you should be the Ministry of Debt.
Budget debt.
There's no development. If you look at the budget allocation for development, is way lower than the debt. So actually, hakuna development anatupea. In comparison to debt servicing, it's the Ministry of Debt. That's according to myself, Fred Indemuli.
All right. CBK moves to cap fees on M-Pesa, Airtel cash transfers. Another story there. This could be a boost. It's on page 2. On the Tika electric vehicle charging stations project to cost 6 billion shillings. And Kenya needs 6.12 billion shillings. That's about $47 million to roll out 10,000 charging stations for electric vehicles, underlining the significant cost facing the country in efforts to scale up clean transport. If you utasema tutachukua down for that.
Lazima. Unaona kama tuko na 6.1. Kama hatuna ya capitation, tuna
KRA to go after local customers of global tech for unpaid taxes. And ride-hailing price was loom as Bolt set to rival Uber safaris. That's the Business Daily.
All right. So those are the dailies. We've taken a look at the headlines and we'll be discussing them with these three individuals. Kipruto Rapkirwa, who served as Minister for Agriculture in the Kibaki 1 administration, also as member of the National Assembly. Governance analyst Kathy Rungu will be in studio alongside Wakili Kibe Mungai discussing the main headlines. One of them, of course, the resumption of the continuous voter registration exercise and the kind of concerns, especially to do with the apathetic nature of Kenyan youth, plus ile kelele mingi watu wamepigia Uhuru Kenyatta. Yani huyo jamaa mlisema asiongea, akiongea hivi kidogo kila mtu Anyway, we'll be looking at
Linde mama.
Na alisema tu mimi nilileta Linda mama, lakini mukaitoa. And he is pained mulitoa. Watu walikasirika wakasema hapana, ulikuwa na Linda mama ya nani?
Ati sasa wana Linda jamii, okay?
Acha tuangalie